What is up, everybody? It is your friendly neighborhood lasagna here with you on a glorious Thursday. It's Thursday, right? Thursday afternoon with my dearest friend, C-Mag. How's it going, Connor McGuire?
It's going good, dude. Happy to be back online talking to our friends here. Been a while. Excited to talk some Yankees. Yeah.
You know, I think the backwards hat is kind of doing something for me right now. So,
doing something for me too, man.
I'm stunned.
You're stunned?
I'm stunned. I'm speechless. I'm a little intimidated.
It's for you. I'll take it down.
But no more Yankees tonight. Oh, yeah. I think both sides are doing something for me, so we'll just leave it at that. No Yankees tonight. No Knicks. I'm not following basketball as much as I usually do this year, but I know they're not playing tonight. So, we're out here entertaining the masses with our voices. So for those of you who choose to join us this evening, thank you for being here. And do not forget to subscribe to our new channel, Yankees Coast to Coast. It is a thing that we're going to be doing a couple times a month, maybe once every 2 weeks. So definitely stick around and pay attention to some of our updates. But let's get into the Yankees a little bit. So Yankees have been struggling a little bit. Some of the highs of the early season, kind of felt like world beaters, felt like we were the team to beat in the American League. Over the last, couple of weeks, we've kind of come back down to earth. So the Yankees have lost 6 of their they lost 6 out of their last 8, and they were swept by the Brewers. So, over the course of these games, there's a lot of ebbs and flows over 162 games. There's going to be streaks where you're bad, where you're good. So, early in the season, you're trying to figure out who the Yankees are. Are they world beaters? Are they going to be a team that struggles against teams over 500, like we've kind of seen early on? They do love to beat up on the cream puffs. But what are some of your impressions over the last couple of weeks as the team has kind of come back down to earth? Is it time to panic? Is it an early June swoon? What are your thoughts?
Oh, my gosh. My thoughts are that it's an unfortunate stretch. They're not playing great baseball. I was in the building in Baltimore for the final game of that 3-game series, which we lost. You can blame me for the Max Fried injury if you want.
I will.
We don't go in for superstition, and I'm certainly not going to stop going to games. But it was an unfortunate scene, and honestly, it wasn't. Man, you've watched games with me. You sat in the stadium with me next to me, and if you could just tell the people, what's my general vibe, win or lose, for the most part?
This guy loves mangoes. I gotta tell you.
No, be serious. Be serious.
No, he's into the game. He's into the at bats.
Would you say positive? Would you say positive?
Yeah, positivity. Yeah. He's following along. He's not one of those drifters who just kind of gets distracted. So right. Yeah, he's dialed in.
So without going into too much detail about my mindset or to extrapolate on what this means for the season, that was some bad baseball, man. And I sat there and I kind of felt like a little bit resentful for the product that was being put out there. Not because of the lineup, because I get there's injuries. I don't think they could have done any better in terms of what they had on hand, but just the quality of the play on the field and the effort that was put forward. And I just kind of got really bummed out by it. So that's a short-term thing. I'm not saying that's going to be the rest of the year. I'm not saying we have to hit the panic button back here. Okay. But for the time being, for the time being, we're watching bad baseball. And so it's a question of what we have to do in the short term, not what we're going to look like down the road in October. These are important questions too. But right now, what are we going to do to get back off the schneid and back in the win column on a consistent basis? And these are important decisions that I think we're seeing a lot of positive. We've seen an attitude shift out of even just the way Boone has been talking to the media in terms of accountability, taking ownership and putting not airing dirty laundry in public to the media necessarily, but not mincing words and protecting guys that are underperforming or that even for over a 1-game stretch underperforming. So hopefully that translates. But in the meantime, at least it takes away some of the frustration. But honestly, man, I think they can do it, but we have to do it. We have to do it, and not just for a long-term perspective, but right away. Let's get off this. Let's see what this team is made of in terms of, we know these bumps are going to happen. Is this going to be an extended stretch like we've seen before, like a premature June swoon, or can it be rectified with the players we have available? That's going to be really hopefully interesting to watch over the next week or two.
Absolutely. And, it's one of those things. They're not going to maintain a ridiculous 110 win pace, all season long. Very rarely teams will do that. Even after their early good start, everyone's like, oh, we're going to run away with the division, this and that. Those Tampa Bay Rays, man, they will not go away. And, after the Yankees have come back down to earth a little bit, the Yankees are now 2 games back of the Rays in the division. So, the Red Sox and Blue Jays don't look how most of us expected they would to this point. So, it kind of felt like a down year for the AL East. But if the Tampa Bay Rays sustain even close to this pace, we're going to be neck and neck with them all season. So it's going to be tough to keep up if they, somewhat maintain what they're doing. Yeah. But, the Yankees, we're talking about the early June swoon. We usually see that June lull a little bit. Hopefully with that attitude change we've seen in the sense of urgency this season, that's not going to happen. But, there's some things kind of brewing where it's looking like June might be one of those months again. A combination of injuries, a combination of some players struggling, young players coming up and having to adjust and, kind of learn on the fly. So there's a lot of moving parts, guys coming back, guys going on the IL. So it's kind of turning into, those dark clouds are rolling in for June, man. You're looking up and it's thunder and lightning and big gray clouds. And you're like, oh shit, here we go again. It's kind of that perfect storm. But they're 1-8 versus teams over 500 to this point. And obviously a small sample size, only 9 games. We are only in the middle of May, so it's still pretty early in the season, but you want to see them play better against those teams with a little bit better records, a little bit better competition. You want to see them rise to the occasion a little bit. And that's kind of a gripe we had dating back to last year and years prior. Last year, Toronto gave us a lot of problems, and, we ended up tying with them in the division, but we had a lot of opportunities to either beat them, pull ahead, and we didn't. So, that either comes down to the players just getting outplayed. It could be a lack of leadership in the clubhouse. It could be a lack of, leadership from management. There's a variety of factors, but, we want to see them step up against those better teams because obviously when it gets to playoff time, they have had an issue with teams that aren't in the AL Central getting through October. So definitely a trend you want to keep an eye on there. But, early on this season, there's teams that might be under 500 right now that will end up being over 500. Or there's 500 teams right now that will end up being under 500 over time. So it's kind of hard to tell what the strength of schedule really looks like. But we got a few guys, kind of what I alluded to earlier. You got a couple of young guys trying to figure it out. You got Spencer Jones, who came up recently. We'll talk more about him later. But, he's up there trying to figure it out. You had Dominguez trying to reestablish himself, and he bangs into the wall after making a great catch. Austin Wells has been struggling. JC Escarra is kind of in and out of the lineup. And then you got Volpe. We'll talk about the Volpe and Caballero thing, a little bit later. But you have a group of guys right now who are A, they're trying to figure out, B, just not very good hitters. And then guys like Jazz who are struggling big time right now. Mm-hmm. In terms of Jazz, it's a contract year. He's looking to get big money in the offseason. He talked about 50-50. He's got the swag. He's got the media sound bites. What do you think is going on with Jazz right now? Do you have an impression? Do you think the contract talks are getting to him a little bit? Is he going to figure it out as time goes on? What are your thoughts about Jazz, and how are you feeling about how things are turning out for him this year?
Yeah, I think the smart money is on him eventually turning it around. It's a matter of whether he can be put in a situation that he can succeed. And for me, I think right now, the more we struggle, the more pressure he puts on himself to not only fix his season and get his season turned around, which it seemed like he was on the verge of doing, and then he kind of fell back into a slide. But I think the more team success happens, the less pressure there's going to be on him, and the odds of him turning around go up. I think asking for him to be the catalyst for a turnaround is asking too much based on what we've seen, the kind of player he is. And so, not saying he's not a great player, not saying he didn't have a fantastic year last year. I just think, there are two different questions: whether he can turn it around versus whether he's going to be the reason we turn it around.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's tough because, with a Wells struggling, with a Volpe struggling, with a Spencer Jones trying to figure it out, with all those guys in the lineup, the top half, it's pretty top heavy lineup, and you got to have those guys up top figuring things out. We're missing Stanton right now. Ben Rice missed a little bit of time. So when you have Jazz hitting, it kind of lengthens that lineup. It gives you more options outside of that, top group with Judge and Stanton and Rice, who are going to be the primary run producers this year. Jazz kind of lengthens that lineup when he's hitting well. And right now he's shortening quite a bit. So definitely a situation where you really hope he figures it out. Right now he's hitting 203. He's at 153 at bats, hitting 203. He's got a 608 OPS. He did have our only hit yesterday, though. So thank God he smoked that ball, to right field, or else we could have been a combined no hitter there in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. But he's kind of, Jazz, I don't want to call him a head case, but we know he's an emotional guy. We know it could be a little controversial with how he kind of carries himself and some of his sound bites and his confidence, pimping homers and, 50-50 and all this kind of stuff. So, a lot of the fan base has turned on him as well because of his lack of production in October. So, kind of a pattern where we've seen him kind of have some struggles. There's some rumors that he's been, fighting Boone on getting pinch hit for, or having like a Rosario start over him against a lefty kind of thing, where Jazz is kind of like, hey man, I'm trying to be in the lineup. I'm trying to figure this thing out. And Boone's like, well, we got to get more production out of here. We're missing Stanton. We're missing some guys here. So yeah, very interesting. And Jazz is in a position where he's got to capitalize on this opportunity, hitting the market. We don't know what's going to happen with 2027 and the lockout, but he's trying to put his best foot forward and put up some gaudy numbers so he can get a big time payday next year. And, at this point, if the season ended today, which is so cliche, but what the heck would he be getting on the open market right now? Because it's not looking good for him. So, you figure a guy's going to have 400 or 500 at bats in the year. So he's a long way away from that. As it heats up, as, things kind of get rolling for him, I expect him to turn it around. But at this point, pretty rough. So you were at the game yesterday. Max Fried obviously leaves the game. Mm-hmm. He has not looked himself the last few starts. Obviously, people were talking about potential blister issue. Maybe he's just, in a little bit of a funk. But he leaves the game with elbow soreness yesterday. They're calling it posterior elbow soreness. So what are some of your thoughts on the whole Max Fried thing? Do you think it'll be out a while? Do you think it could be something that could be worse or not as bad as we think? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think anytime you hear a pitcher leaving a game early with elbow issues linked to recent bad performance, it sends you want to shoot up the panic flares across the sky. The good news that we've heard, and you can take it with a grain of salt, because it wouldn't be the first time we heard a player involved in injury speculation hint to the media that it could be nothing and then have it turn out to be very much not nothing. At the same time, the reports that it is on the posterior part of the elbow, which is the outside right here, not the UCL, which is right about here, is generally positive. That means that, even though we don't know what it is until the MRI comes back, which reports, I think we had, it was reported today that the MRI happened already, I believe, in New York City. So we'll probably find out maybe as early as tomorrow morning what the results are there. The hope is that it's something as basic as kind of just tendonitis. Maybe the opportunity of him like coming back as he said he may be able to come back for his next start is probably pretty limited in terms of the chances of that happening. But maybe he skips 1 or 2 starts. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario is a lot worse than that. But I don't think we're in a spot where we need to think about that right now. Obviously, this pitching staff is a lot better with Fried than without Fried, but we do have a lot of depth to withstand, hopefully, a very short stint on the IL, if that. So, not a positive thing, but at least there's a rationale, or at least there's an explanation for why his performance has been kind of dipping as of late. Because he started off, top of the list in terms of Cy Young candidates. So,
yeah, 100%. I mean, when I heard posterior, I got a little excited because obviously that's the outer part of the elbow. When you talk about inner part of the elbow, you're talking about that ulnar collateral ligament, that whole Tommy John kind of situation. So good thing there, we think, elbow soreness. There's a lot going on in there. There could be, an issue somewhere that's causing the posterior soreness. We just don't know. It's hard to speculate. But I had a buddy when I was playing in junior college. He had a golf ball size ball on the inside of his elbow. He tried to throw through it. He got an MRI and he needed TJ. So, the fact that that Fried isn't dealing with that inner part of the elbow, like you said, definitely is encouraging. But we do have starting pitching depth. So you do have a, potential Elmer Rodriguez callback. He didn't look great when he was up here with us earlier. A little bit, in the minors, they were talking about how he was, very good with his control. He was advanced for a young pitcher. He is a pretty young guy. So, he was kind of wise beyond his years. He could effectively, execute his pitch mix and, hit his spots and stuff like that. We didn't see that when he came up, a lot of walks, hit a couple guys, kind of erratic. So, chalk it up to nerves or whatever. But, he probably comes back up. You've got Carlos Rodon that just came back. So definitely getting some reinforcements back is good. Garrett Cole coming soon. Will Warren's been fantastic. Weathers has been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So, they always say you can never have too much starting pitching, and usually things will work itself out. This could be a scenario where things kind of worked itself out. We hope that Max Fried isn't going to be gone for a while, but if he is, at least we have some reinforcements that could slide in there and kind of log some innings. But what I wanted to talk about was, Garrett Cole's coming back from TJ, so you can't guarantee that he's going to be 100% all year. They're probably going to slow roll him too, because you don't want to, put too much load on him when he comes up and re-enter that damn thing. Carlos Rodon, they're going to be slow rolling him off of an injury. Weathers has a history of being hurt. So you got three guys who are either being slow rolled back from injury or have injury history. Carlos Rodon has previous history as well. So, Fried was kind of that stabilizing force there while some things in the rotation kind of got figured out around him. Mm-hmm. Now that he might be missing some time, who is the pressure going to fall on? It's probably going to be Cam Schlittler, right?
I mean, yeah, like for in terms of the stabilizing kind of like even, either to continue a stretch of dominance or right the ship when you're flailing, you look to your ace, whoever that may be, as an important kind of part of that cycle over the course of a long season. So yes, in terms of filling that role, it is obviously Schlittler until we have a more than a couple game stretch of Garrett Cole looking like his former self. Obviously, it's nice to get a player like Garrett Cole back, but even with Cole back over the next few weeks or months, Schlittler has really solidified himself as that role. So we're lucky we have him coming up the next turn.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to see Cam off to a great start this season, but to say it's a great start is almost an understatement. Like, he is potentially the best starting pitcher in baseball, maybe top three. So
beyond arguably top 10, arguably top 5. I would put him at 3 personally.
Yeah, he's right. I mean, Paul Skeens has kind of figured things out. Skubal's out. You got Soriano and Anaheim, but Schlittler is just, and it's so crazy. It's so crazy to me that he's just doing it by pouring in heavy fastball, sinker, cutter. And, he's not throwing a split. He's not throwing a changeup. He doesn't throw his curveball very often. His cutter kind of moves like a slider, so I guess you can call that somewhat of a secondary pitch, but he's throwing 3 variations of a fastball over and over and over again. And it's unbelievable to see, in a day and age where hitters are used to seeing velocity. You can't just be like, oh, he's throwing 98. That's why he's blowing it by guys. Well, no, these guys are used to saying 98. Everyone throws 98 now. Every pitching machine throws 98. They're used to it. But, I mean, for it to have as much run as it does, have as much carry and cut, and how tall he is and tilt, a lot of things going on there that kind of makes Cam Schlittler fascinating. So my question is, this is his first full season in the bigs as a starting pitcher. Obviously, we have aspirations to get into October and get deep into October. Is there going to be a situation where they kind of reel it back a little bit with him? Is there going to be a correction where, he's kind of been, at the mountaintop for so long? Is he going to come back down to earth a little bit? Is that inevitable? Can he continue to pitch this well? Can he put the rotation on his back while things are kind of working around him? All very interesting things to see play out here. But going back to Garrett Cole, so he's in his minor league start. I think he's got a couple more left. He's been doing his minor league stint. He's got a couple more rehab starts left. Velocity was 97, 98 last start. So it looks like he's letting it go a little bit, which is definitely an encouraging sign. What are your overall expectations for Garrett Cole? Do you think he can beat the odds of, previous starting pitchers coming back from TJ year one, not looking right like Sandy Alcantara and others? Or is he Superman to the point where he can step in? He might have a little bit of a rough stretch as he shakes off the rust and then, gets back to business. What are we thinking Garrett Cole's going to be like, and what is your realistic expectation?
I think it's highly encouraging to see the velocity where it's at in his rehab starts. To me, that's like a game changer as I attempt to answer this very complicated question. I think we can dream on him finding it over the course of the season, hopefully very steadily, and without putting too much on himself or having too much put on him by the team in terms of pressure. And I think this, in terms of the landscape, even with the recent struggles as a team, it's set up as well as it could possibly be set up. I mean, the team has an incredible pitching depth right now. We have the opportunity to potentially, if we can get healthy and Fried can bounce back from this little injury scare, to have a very viable 6-man rotation. And I'm still a proponent of that in terms of hoping to get Cole fully ramped back up again. Whether they do that is a different question. But my expectations for Garrett Cole for the rest of the year, like to put like some numbers on it, I'd say it would be very reasonable to expect him to come back and pitch to an ERA plus of 110 to 120, to go out there and give you at least to start 4 to 5 solid innings and work his way up to 6 to 7, and hopefully be peaking as well as anyone can hope for him to peak coming off an injury like this towards the end of the year. I think it's auspicious that he's starting the year kind of late, give him a very extended spring training. Auspicious as far as what he might be doing in October when we really are going to need him with his experience and when that stuff really, really comes at a premium. But yeah, I think he'll be a reliable number 2, number 3 with one upside on any given start. That's what I'm hoping for. And that's what I kind of expect from him.
100%. Herbie! He's going to call me slurs. So please don't be alarmed. It's coming. Just be prepared.
We'll just have to put that cat off the screen for now.
No, but I mean, him touching 98 in his last rehab start, that's incredibly encouraging. I was afraid he'd come back and be, sitting around 94. So, that definitely is a sight for sore eyes. You definitely see, when guys come back from TJ, they say things don't feel the same. There's a little bit of a lack of ability to locate. He put it up there. Slurs in the chat, Herbie. Slurs in the chat. Yeah, kind of use maybe use the number 0 instead of O, or 3 instead of an E. We can get a little creative. But if he's hanging a slider, or if he's trying to, Garrett Cole loves to go up in the zone with the fastball late in the count to get those strikeouts. If he tries to go up there and he leaves it a little bit down and it gets smoked, those things are going to happen. And those were that kind of thing was happening when he was healthy anyways. So I'm not going to be alarmed if he hangs a slider and it gets banged, or if he goes fastball up and it gets banged. But, I want to see him 5 or 6 innings, 3 runs or less, just quality starts. I'm not looking for, 7 shutout with 12 Ks. I'm looking for him, getting through a lineup 2 or 3 times, establishing his secondary stuff, hitting corners, changing things up, tunneling, doing that kind of thing that we know Garrett Cole is really good at, and getting a feel for everything, getting that fastball to the outside corner, breaking the slider off of it, going upstairs with the heat when you need to change the eye level. Those are the things that I'm looking for when Garrett's out there, and he looks composed, he looks calm, and he's doing the whole overhead thing with his windup. And he's saying that he likes the tempo of it. He likes the feel of it. There's good flow to it. So, maybe he grows a little facial cheddar, a little cabbage, little lettuce on the.
Looks like he's put on about 25 pounds.
I was gonna go there a little bit after talking about the facial cabbage, but
it takes a bit of pressure off the arm when you got that much weight to throw behind the ball.
The dad bod,
a little bit of early CC. Yeah,
the dad bod is in full effect, but that's fine. That's fine. He's a mid-30s guy who's been dealing with a pretty rough arm injury there. So I'm sure he's he's got a young kid. He's got 1 or 2 kids. I don't know. He's got young kids and a family and a life. So I'm not shocked that he's put on a few lbs, but he's going to work his way into shape. But he's he's logging 4 or 5 innings as it is already. You know, a little bit of fluff around the midsection. It did not hurt a man like CC Sabathia, as you said. Or how about some throwback Bartolo Colon? How do we feel about that? You remember that? He looked like a little ball.
That's an unfair comp, man.
It's an unfair comp, but there is a history of fluffy males on that mound who can still pump and can still have success, even though it looks like they
have both homered in the show, and they have both won a Cy Young award.
There you go.
Other than that, Bartolo Colon and Garrett Cole are not similar human beings.
They both pump, all right, and they're both Cy Young guys. So we're gonna stop the comparisons there. But no, I don't know what to expect in terms of how long they're gonna let him go, like 4 or 5 innings. How long do you let him go? You know, how long do you wait until he throws 100 pitches? I don't know. How many starts is he going to make? Are they going to skip a start or two, depending on how he feels after a start? So there's a lot of question marks with Garrett Cole. Carlos Rodon didn't look great after the 4th inning in his last start, so he's still working out some kinks and shaking the rust off there. But he has injury history. Max Fried's got a little bit of issues right now, so Weathers has a little bit of issues. So you can go from a position where you had a lot of starting pitching depth. You're like, oh, man, how are we going to put all the pieces together to, you know, really pretty quickly you're like, oh, man, good thing we have this depth because now it's needed. So very interesting to see how that all plays out. But let's get into the Volpe and Caballero conversation. So this is probably the hottest topic after yesterday's game. Volpe is back up. Caballero dives into, I think, first base or second base. I think it was a pickoff or he either steal one of those situations.
First base.
He has a fracture in his middle finger, I believe, on his throwing hand. So, you know, obviously not great. When you have a guy who's gritty, gamer kind of type like him, he plays hard every day. He's going to be diving into bases. He's going to be, you know, tumbling all over the place, crashing into stuff. He's kind of a tough dude. He's a rugged dude. He's a wild playing style that's you like. He doesn't have the huge size. He doesn't have the huge power. He doesn't have all those measurables, but you know, he's gritty, and that's why he's a good fit for this team. He's a good fit for the bottom of the order. He's a huge pest on the base paths, but he gets the fracture in that finger. He goes in the IL. Worst case scenario, Volpe is back up with the club. We see him yesterday, and there were some boos in the Yankees section of Baltimore there. You were there. Did you hear those when Volpe got up to the plate? A little bit of boos.
So when he first came up to bat for the very first time, I think we should give ourselves some credit as a fan base. I want to flag this because the
fan base gets more credit if they were booing.
Hold on. Silence.
I would
you wanted context. You wanted on-field reporting anyway. So
were they booing or not?
Listen to me.
Oh my God.
There's levels to this, dude. Okay. When he first came up, there was a smattering of like positivity and cheering, like welcome back. Like I think there's a collective knowledge of like, look, it's not like he played his way here, but it's not like there's a better option unless people aren't clamoring for Schumann to be out there. So there was some support, and then immediate futility and failure, followed by a smattering of booing by the Yankee fans. So a little bit of everything.
Should have been.
Yeah.
Did you cheer or boo? What did you do when he got up?
I sat there in silence and just watched. I just witnessed.
I didn't expect a crowd. I forget that a ton of Yankee fans travel to Baltimore to watch those series. The Yankees fans travel well, so bad on me. But watching on TV, I didn't expect a crowd reaction when he got up. But he gets up and you hear this like kind of mixture of like boos and like
his first at bat. You're talking about?
Yeah, the first at bat.
Okay, I was right behind home plate, and the first at bat, all I heard was like a very polite, mild cheer, like let's go.
I heard some of that.
On now, welcome back, kid.
You could hear on TV a little bit of like woo. So there was
a mixed
reaction.
When he got out, there were groans. Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot more groans.
It would be crazy if a guy was out with an injury. It'd be crazy if a guy was out with an injury, hadn't played a single inning of Major League Baseball all year, and then he gets up for the first time and gets booed. That'd be crazy.
It wouldn't be that crazy because the fan base is so fed up with him.
Now that would be like some Met type behavior, or some Red Sox fan behavior. I think the Yankees fans are better than that.
I'm not better than that.
I think we wait until the guy actually fails, and then we boo him. We don't just boo him.
going back to what I said on the last show, though, they don't have to fit him into this equation. Schumann looked perfectly fine defensively. His feet were pretty good. He had a strong arm.
Okay,
his range was decent.
We could talk about that.
And Caballero is only going to be out, what, 7 more games? 7 days, maybe?
Yeah.
So why don't you leave Volpe in the minors? Let him continue to find his way with whatever offensive bullshit he's dealing with. Leave Schumann there. He's got like an 800 OPS and limited playing time. Defensively didn't look too bad. Why do you got to bring Volpe up and insert him back into that role? You're throwing him to the Wolves because we all have been watching him in the minors. He's got a 600 OPS in AAA.
Yeah, no. By the way,
so
don't get it twisted. I'm just telling you what happened in terms of the reaction to him playing. I was for everyone that was frustrated and annoyed at him and doesn't want to see him play baseball right now. I'm right there with you. I agree with what you're saying. I am totally okay with trading him, sitting him down, not playing him. I am not defending the decision to play him, but I'm also not I'm not trying to declare that that's our problem right now. It's just we have limited options at shortstop. It's not like we just need to reframe how we view this player. You know, we don't need to worry about what Volpe is going to be in the future. Okay.
He shouldn't even be in the organization anymore.
Sure.
He should be gone.
Great. So should any player that isn't good. I mean, there's a lot of players that are playing out of necessity right now across the league that have numbers as bad or worse than Volpe, and that's part of 162 games. Okay. So I'm not trying to say that Volpe is the answer to any question or any problem. It's just like, okay, I'm not going to make starting Schumann. I'm not going to die on that hill. I don't really give a hoot right now about Schumann versus Volpe. In fact, I don't really give a damn about Volpe in general right now. There's no loyalty. There's no hatred. He's just not a very good player. And I would be pleasantly surprised if he did anything with any amount of starts that he gets from this point forward. And I want to say anything, I mean more than just like randomly pop a homer in a meaningless game. So
right. And
you know that's really the frustrating thing, I think, for most fans is seeing him make errors again, even in a game that was already out of reach. Just do the simple things right, and then we'll ignore you. Okay, we don't need you to hit walk-off home runs, but if you can't do the simple things right, we can't ignore you. We can't pretend like you're just the 26th guy because you're doing things that a routine average. That you're doing routine things that an average player should be able to do with no problems, horribly wrong, like horribly poorly. And you're not giving us the chance to kind of give you the benefit of the doubt because you're being seen failing when the expectations are already so low. So it's tough, man. That's the end of my rant about Volpe. I'm sick of it.
Not only are the expectations low, people are actively rooting for him to fail, and they want to boo him and they want him gone because the organization told us we're not going to go after a Matt Olson or a Luis Castillo or a Corey Seager.
All right.
We're not going to give up a Volpe because he's the chosen one. He's the next Jeter. He's the kid from Jersey. He's the chicken parm guy. He met Jeter when he was a kid. So fans are pissed off. And even when he struggled, he was still coddled. He was given the runway that no other young prospect.
Not anymore, though. Not anymore.
Not anymore. But he's back up.
That.
He's back up, and people don't want to see him back up. People want to see him gone. So to bring him up while he's struggling in the minors, you're setting himself up for failure to continue to struggle in the majors while he's trying to figure out whatever the fuck's going on there. And when he goes to Yankee Stadium, he is going to make an error. He's going to chase a bad pitch, and the boos are going to come down like they did for Aaron Hicks. And they're going to have a situation where this player is falling apart mentally right in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
And why not leave Schumann at short, who was doing just fine? Is only for a week. You bring up.
They might.
You bring up.
You know what, buddy?
No. They don't have to I have to be on the roster.
They're not going to play him if he continues to play like this for even one more game.
He shouldn't even be up as it is.
This should be good news. This should be music to your ears. We have seen nothing
be
over the last year and a half to indicate to us that there's any danger of that happening. We should be emboldened by the positive shift we've seen and applying it going forward to Volpe. I'm not worried about that.
We are excited about them saying Caballero will get his job back.
Yeah,
when he is healthy.
Last time I checked,
Volpe shouldn't be on the roster.
Yeah,
Schumann stays at short. You bring up Oswaldo to back him up in case you need another shortstop, and you let Volpe figure it the fuck out in AAA, or you move off of him because I'm telling you, they're going to end up in a position where. Because Caballero is probably going to get hurt again, or he's going to, have some horrible slump, and they're going to go right back to Volpe, and the Wolves are going to be out, and they're going to be back into the Josh Donaldson, Joey Gallo, Anthony Volpe situation where a guy is getting the absolute shit boot out of him every game, and they're like, what are they going to do? Can they keep playing him? Can they keep exposing him to this type of abuse? And it's going to become one of those situations where the team's going to lose. The team's going to be in a losing streak or something. Volpe's going to get all the blame, and it's just going to be right back in the fuck storm that it was before. And it doesn't need to be. You don't have to keep going to this guy, which is driving me nuts. But anyways, we are happy that
I'm with you on 90% of that. And I think it's important to recognize that two things are true here. Aaron Boone, the Yankees, the front office, everyone who has any kind of authority on decisions in this organization are not going to throw him back to the minors after one game as futile as it was. But to your point about the fear of having him thrown to the wolves of the stadium with continued failure, I don't see it getting to that point. They're not going to be so indecisive around that or so loyal, misguidedly loyal around this player anymore. So if we see 3 0 for 4s in a row, he's not going to get the next start.
No,
it's just not going to happen. So it's not going to reach that fever pitch, even if it means starting a Schumann or a Waldo or whomever. So I just don't see that. I think he's a 2A of a litany of 2Bs, Cs, and Ds that are just as viable, and the organization is just as willing to throw out there at shortstop while we wait out this Caballero injury.
Yeah, and my whole thing is he's struggling in AAA. You're going to bring him up. He's going to keep struggling, and then you're starting this whole controversy all over again. Why not leave him in AAA? He's obviously struggling.
Yeah.
Bring up Oswaldo if you need a backup shortstop. Let Volpe keep hitting and wait for that. If you need to go to him later, hopefully by then he's gotten into a groove where he can come up and he can have a little bit of success and be in a little bit of a rhythm. I don't think they absolutely needed to bring him up right now.
No,
and
I agree with that.
The fact that this is even being talked about, Michael K talks about it. They're talking about it on the broadcast. The camera, Volpe bobbles the ball at shortstop like he always does, and they pan over to Caballero in the dugout.
Or Boone.
It's not a Boone. Boone is standing there.
It was interesting to see that captured on the broadcast, because I was sitting just behind home plate, so I had a view of the play, and then I had a view of the Yankees dugout to my left, and that's where my eyes went after the Volpe error. Obviously, I was extra upset because you're there and you're paying money to be there, and it was just another thing in a terrible game. But the first thing I did was I looked right at Osmus and Boone, and they had a little private conversation. And I was like, good. I hope they're saying unforgivable things about this little boy, because I'm so tired of watching him fail out there.
Yeah, the hands are just not good. We've seen so many examples of it, and I just wish he was in another organization and we didn't ever have to think about him ever again. Because every time someone, Caballero gets hurt, well, is Volpe coming? Volpe. He gets called up oh God, here we go again. Yeah. So it's a weak bottom of the order that gets even more weak when he comes up. So it's unfortunate to watch.
It's tough work being a Volpe supporter right now. I mean, they're still out there and they confuse me, and I wonder. I hope they're okay. I hope they're doing okay. My heart goes out to them. I'm not even being sarcastic. I feel terrible for those people because they hitch their wagon to an absolute terrible player, and it's just it sucks, because
it's kind of like the
Gary suffering here.
the guys who love the Gary Sanchez, or the few guys
not this is way worse than that.
Stuck with Aaron Hicks.
No,
I used to see at least Gary and Hicks had some production at some point, so you can kind of see why people would support him. But I just don't understand the. I mean, I understand that people
Gary
were sold on Volpe.
A different story. Hicks is closer.
Yeah, right. I could see how people were, very hopeful for Volpe, and they continue to root for him, to find it eventually. But to be battling people on Twitter and getting into these huge arguments about how he's better than
I can't tell if they're trolling. I can't.
It's
they're being totally sincere. I can't.
It's a tough read, man. And people are going back to Caballero's a career backup. He's a utility man at best. He's not a good hitter.
None of this matters.
There's been an 80-something game sample size where Caballero has had a 761 OPS as a Yankee. So
it comes back to old school scouting with Caballero. It comes back to a lot of the points we've seen kind of show their proof over the last 7 years of baseball, where we go a little bit beyond just the raw numbers, 3 outcome type maximizing of the ultimate run production type player like a Joey Gallo, who has clear flaws when it comes to actually being a baseball player. And I think Caballero is getting a lot of, I think it's a pretty much a consensus of support from not only fans, but also actual stakeholders in the organization of saying this guy can play baseball at a high level, even if he's not hitting a home run. He can be a pest on the base paths or even in the box against elite pitching because his talents are not dependent on squaring up an impossible to hit pitch the way a lot of other guys are. It's like having a Ferrari in the garage, but you drive the Jeep to the store on the weekend because you got to be careful with the miles you're putting on that thing. You can't rely on the sports car to get you to every destination. So Caballero isn't just a better player than Volpe or a better fit at the position right now. He's a better fit for the lineup in terms of getting it to be where it needs to be against better competition. And that means something whether you want to nitpick the 1-8 versus over 500 teams right now, but it's irrelevant to that. I think the organization has stepped up and made that clear. I'm very emboldened and very inspired and very happy with the immediate media statement by Aaron Boone saying this is our starting shortstop.
Right.
I mean,
and
that's a positive thing. Very, very positive.
It's
didn't have to say that.
It's one of those things where you go back. It's like what Jordan said here. Chandler Simpson is the perfect example of analytics not showing the true talent of a player.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sound like the old guy, get off my lawn kind of thing, but you used to be able to watch a player and understand that there were certain intangibles that they had and certain ways they impacted the game beyond the stat sheet that made them valuable. And now if you bring that up online, where's the baseball savant sheet? Where's all the red and blue circles? Where's the fan graphs chart? You can't say things like that anymore because everything has to be measured these days by, the modern, consumer of baseball. But Caballero is one of those guys, he's a career, whatever OPS. When he gets on base at a higher clip than Volpe, he's already shown that he can steal a ton of bags. He is an absolute pest on the base path. So, the pitcher is always thinking about him. They're going to take their focus off the batter for a bit. They're going to, pick off a couple times, try to get him. They're going to rush their delivery a little bit from the stretch, try to get to the catcher sooner so the catcher can, get up and throw and try to throw him out. So he affects the game in different ways. He could drop down a drag butt, try to beat it out for a single. And then you look at him on defense. I think he's got 9 defensive runs saved this year already. So he's looking really good defensively. The arm has looked good. Early on, I think he kicked the ball around a couple times, not work some kinks out, but he's been much better at shortstop. And if he's hitting at a higher clip than Volpe, his OPS this year is 720. What do we say about Volpe every year? We want to see a 700 OPS. We want to see just at least that. Like the bar is so low, like just be average, and he can't even do that. So, one number that popped out though. So on Yes Network, they showed the comparison of the two. So Volpe's 2025 season, his WAR for the whole season was 1.6. Caballero this year alone in limited time, 1.7 WAR.
Okay.
So Caballero has more WAR in this short period than Volpe's entire season last year. So the debate's over, bro. Like,
yeah, everyone agrees. There's no one disagreeing with you in this world.
No, absolutely. No, I'm not saying. No, you don't have to disagree. We're just highlighting.
Everyone in the chat, everyone in the chat's like, hell yeah, buddy.
No,
keep going with that. I'm like, hell yeah, buddy. Keep going.
No, you're stating the obvious. Nobody's debating that. All we're doing is highlighting some of the. No, Yes Network put that on TV. I didn't put it on TV, but I wanted to go out of my way to save that because I thought it was incredible.
That's the nail in the coffin. Every single detail.
It's it's one of those things where we are glad to see that the Yankees finally came around because they have shown that they could be very stubborn with certain things like that. When Aaron Hicks was towards the end, they kept putting him out there. When Gallo was towards the end, they kept putting him out there. Donaldson towards the end, they kept putting him out there. So they're Friday. And Brian Cashman said the other day, I forget who asked him the question, but he's like, well, we have depth this year that we haven't had in the past. So if someone's struggling, we're going to insert, some of our depth pieces.
That's my thing. If I could jump in, man, I hate to interrupt you, but that's my thing now that is the key difference. And so like in the past, if you had no better options, or maybe the fans think, an Estevan Florial is waiting in the wings, but the organization has reason to believe that he isn't a better option, there's a perception that they're foregoing a secondary option and sticking with a guy because of loyalty or delusional commitment to a guy. But right now, I think we're seeing when they have real viable, better alternatives, barring injury, they're less inclined to talk to the media out of both sides of their mouth and try to basically talk you into, no, we're not just going with Volpe because he's the only option we have and we have assembled this roster poorly. We're doing it because we think there's still hope for this guy. And that's a little bit like of a lie that you tell because you have to be able to show a face and at least have plausible deniability around believing that your team can win and believing that there aren't holes that may or may not be addressed, et cetera, et cetera. With Caballero on the roster and performing the way he is, there's no need to do that anymore. The only question now is how quickly do you yank Volpe for a Schumann while we're waiting on Caballero to come back? And to me right now, we got bigger problems to worry about. But we've been through all that, so I feel like we both know where we each stand.
Yeah.
And the thing that I would be most shocked by is if Volpe, even for the remainder of Caballero's injury, was given like unlimited run until Caballero came back. I don't believe that's even possible. Now, I'd be shocked.
I think he will. I think he's going to start every day until Caballero's back.
So we'll see.
Probably plays outfield or something.
So that's, of all the things we've talked about, that's the one thing you and I don't agree on. But everything else, I think we're in perfect agreement. So we'll see about that one real shortly. Yeah.
And you can see it. It's crazy because you could see it in his face. Like he wasn't expecting this whole thing to happen. He was expecting to get healthy, tell the Yankees, I feel good, come back up and get the job. And he's like, bro, they've turned on me. Like, oh my God, I've been double crossed. I've been betrayed. So it's a shock to everyone's system. So it's very interesting. So going back to another, he looks depressed, man. It's crazy. I just, it's fun. I'm not going to say it's fun to watch, but it's very refreshing to see the Yankees not give a fuck about him being sad and say the better player is going to be there when he comes back. So thank God. Another young guy, you tweeted about his incredible walk the other day when you were at the game. Spencer Jones. So, I've obviously talked about him a lot on Twitter. I'm very excited to see him in the bigs. Every time he comes up, I'm over by the TV. I want to see what happens. He's off to a little bit of a slow start. He's only had he's had 12 at bats. We said 083, so not great.
Spencer Jones.
What have you seen so far from him? Is it too early to even consider a first impression? How much time do we give him? Like, what is your whole thought process on what's going to happen with him and what you expect?
I want him to play good defense, run the bases well, not make major mistakes, to show an approach with 2 outs that's different than an approach with no outs. I want to see an approach that's different with runners on versus no runners on. Whether he succeeds is almost immaterial. I want to see that there's an approach where projecting out forward with enough sample size of using that approach, we can learn something about him as a player. But I also really, really want to see at least one home run every 20 at-bats. Full stop. His approach, clearly, unless he's trying to shorten up, which I saw him do one time, his 1 RBI with his 1 hit. He had a nice little short approach to that ball. I love that. I can dream on that, given what we know he can do from a power perspective. But we're seeing him go up there and take some big old daddy hacks with no one on base. Big old swing. So okay, do your thing, man. Go out there, be the kind of player you've always been. But let me get 1 home run every 20 at-bats. And then we can talk about whether you're batting 180. We could talk about whether you're going to stick once everyone gets healthy. But I need to see that at a minimum. I need to, if you're doing that approach, if you're swinging out of your shoes the way you are, I got to see a bomb every 20 at bats or better. And I got to see, he almost made a really fantastic play there with robbing a home run, just missed it. I'm not going to knock him for that, but just play some solid defense, run the base as well, and give me a bomb every 20 at bats, and we'll see where we shake out over the next month or so of run, whatever he gets. But yeah, I mean, just to add again, like if we can also see a little bit of an adjustment to his approach, given certain situational differences, as opposed to a guy that can only go up there and just do one thing and that's swing out of his shoes. So I was very, very inspired by that little 2-out knock that he had up the middle because it looked like he shortened up. And we've seen guys like, you look at Anthony Rizzo and the way he kind of made a career out of being a power threat. Not at the end there with the Yankees, he was pretty futile once he was, concussed Rizzo. But I'm talking about like early Yankees Rizzo and Cubs Rizzo. He could go up there and like take some big old swings and like knock some like, game impacting homers, but then with 2 strikes, shorten up and poke one to left field as a lefty and kind of put the ball in play when he has to. Given his strikeout rate, the things that'll save us there, especially as he develops and hopefully improves as a major leaguer, will be, can he put the ball in play with runners on, despite that big giant swing, and then also, can we see that walk rate stay where it is or climb, and have that strikeout rate slowly come down. But yeah, I think ultimately what's going to matter is, can he do what he's reported to be able to do really, really well, which is hit a home run. And I put the number at about 20 at bats. So that's my rant about Spencer Jones.
Yeah, for sure. They just did imaging on Stanton again, your boy. They haven't seen enough healing in the calf to, warrant him running again and working his way back. So we're going to see Spencer Jones for a while. We're going to get, we should get enough at bats to get a good, impression of what he might be. Someone in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think every time he's been called up or, sometimes early in the season, he does get off to slower starts. So we're kind of seeing that now where he's kind of getting his feet wet a little bit. Man, did he face some absolutely disgusting pitching in Milwaukee or what? You had Mizorowski out there throwing 104.
That was crazy.
You had guys coming out of the pen throwing 99-mile-an-hour sinkers and stuff like that. So he got a full helping of, top major league pitching right off the bat. So, can't really go off of a ton there because, most of the lineup wasn't hitting. So it's like you can't hold that against him. But, like you did mention about the walk rate, out of his 12 at bats, he does have 3 walks, which is nice. But he struck out 6 times. So 12 at bats, 6 Ks. He has K'd in half of his ABs. He is taking those enormous swings, like you said, and he's getting after it, fastball up or a breaking ball down, and he's swinging out of his ass, hoping that he squares it up. So he's going to have to make an adjustment. But the video you posted of that walk he had against Baltimore, so I liked that at bat because, he got some tough pitches there and he laid off of them. He made an adjustment, which was encouraging. Yeah. That 3-2 slider he took started right at his knees. He could have. We've seen him in his earlier ABs chasing that and waving at it, but he picked it up. He let it break below his knees. He took a good pitch, 3-2, and they walked to first base. So I was very excited to see him recognize that. Pitch recognition, is going to be huge for him because if you're going to swing out of your ass, you better guess right sometimes and not look like a fool. I think, there is some Aaron Judge comparison, big, long guy, tall, a lot of power, a lot of swing and miss. Judge when Judge first got called up, he had a little bit of a struggle there too. And obviously the year after that, he got his first full season and he was crushing everything. So, we're not going to do the whole Judge versus Spencer Jones thing. The only reason we're comparing is because big, tall guys, long, lanky, a lot of moving parts, and huge power. So I'll give him probably how many weeks should we give him until we're like, okay, we want to start seeing some, some base knocks, a little bit of production there, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe. So, definitely. Oh, there's the pitch right there. That was the 3-2 slider, down and into a lefty. It was a great spot. It was a great take from him. So,
if I wasn't at the game, I would have put the Meek Mill over this clip. It would have been really funny. Yeah, I think people thought I was being sarcastic, and I was like, no, I mean, like, I'm just like looking for something to post that's positive. That's what
it was. It was a good sarcastic caption. Though when I saw it, I was laughing my ass off. I just saw it like an hour earlier before we got on here, but that at bat stood out to me. And Yankee Source, I'm not sure if you follow him on Twitter, but he follows a lot of prospects and stuff like that, and he posted that whole AB and he said he liked what he saw there in terms of pitch recognition and stuff like that. So very encouraging sign there. But, we want to see some production from him because this lineup needs to get long, man. Jazz is struggling. Spencer Jones trying to figure it out. Volpe sucks. Wells isn't hitting. Jordan mentioned Austin Wells earlier. He said Austin Wells needs to get more smoke for his lack of hitting.
No one wants Volpe to start more games more often than Austin Wells because he'll keep the eye of Sauron off of him.
That is a great great take there. But
well, let me answer your question before we move on from Spencer Jones. I mean,
yeah,
like how many weeks do we give him before we start kind of like worrying about him as a player? I mean, yeah, I kind of feel like I think I trust that he's going to eventually run into a couple home runs here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And that'll buy him some time. I think it's going to come down to like taking the temperature on the fan base will be all about when do those home runs happen. If he can pop like a couple meaningful home runs here or there, he'll buy himself some time to develop where we won't really worry as much about the stats. So it's interesting when you're asking that question about a player who's brand new to the league.
Yeah.
It's like that's the caveat is if he like runs into like a really important home run at Yankee Stadium, that buys him like a month. And hopefully the real question is, what does he then do with that month? Are we feeling incrementally better about him as his profile as an overall player by the end of that month, even if that month is not the prettiest or doesn't translate to an 800 plus OPS or a ton of production? And the good thing is we've talked about this, I think it feels like for the last like 8 months, you and I, his glove and his speed and his base running, by all reports, hopefully will do him some favors in terms of not just being a big lumbering slugger that we expect to hit bombs, because in the other areas of the game, he'll hopefully carry his own weight as well.
100%. Yeah, that's a great point you made about, a few key homers buying him time. I think he understands how the fan base is. He understands he's been very hyped. He's a very polarizing player. A lot of people, think he sucks. A lot of people think he's got high upside. So he's on Twitter. He liked one of my tweets when I was joking around. I posted a video of him pitching in high school.
Oh, no kidding.
I making a joke like Spencer Jones changes positions to pitcher officially to make the big league club. And he liked that. He liked that tweet. So he reads the tweets, he reads the discourse, and he's very aware of what some of the conversations are about him and what people view him as. So I think your point was really good about him buying some time with the fan base. He wants to make a splash. He wants to hit that first homer. He wants to produce. He's getting an opportunity that he probably felt like was never going to come. Maybe, he's been down there crushing homers for the last 2 or 3 years. And he's like, when am I getting the chance? Grisham, looked good last season. So we took Dominguez's whole spot.
Yeah. So unlike Volpe, he actually earned his spot here. So no matter what happens, we're not looking at a situation where he's overstayed his welcome or he's being given something he didn't earn by the coaching staff or the front office. It's very inspiring and it carries a lot of hope that they're giving him that opportunity, but he earned it. This is not just a matter of pedigree or draft position. He put up the numbers at every level to be where he is right now. So just on the merits of that, given the opportunity and the opening that he has because of Stanton's injury. Yeah. I'm not even thinking in terms of weeks. I'm thinking more in terms of I know he has the ability to hit a home run here.
Oh yeah. It's going to happen.
So just give him the time. Yankee fans that go to the stadium, please don't boo this man.
God,
just
please don't.
Yeah, I don't even know when I'm taking that kibosh off, but I'm not even saying for a month. Just don't boo him, okay? Because just don't.
Thank you. I'm glad
we all want this guy to succeed, and he hasn't done anything right now to deserve being booed. So I mean, maybe one day he will. Hopefully, one day he will. But don't do it until he's a little bit more than a tadpole.
Do not what we're dealing with right cheer now. This guy. Be excited to watch him. He's a very unique talent. He's an alien. How big and strong and tall. We get kind of jaded about a player being that big and strong because we got Aaron Judge and we watch him all the time. But a guy like Spencer Jones with tools like him doesn't come around very often. So if he clicks, this could be a player you're watching in pinstripes for a long time that's going to hit a lot of big homers, and produce at a high level. So. Like you said, support this guy. He's going to K. The Ks are going to happen. Don't be surprised. There might be some rough runs. There might be some ugly ones, but he's trying to get his sea legs under him. He's trying to, get his feet wet and figure things out a little bit. So definitely, I want to watch every at bat. I want to see how he fares against, the Mets pitching. He's going to get an opportunity here and go into Queens to make a big splash in a rivalry series. So maybe that's a good time for the homer to come. But Tommy says with Jones, give me 30 plus homers and an 850 OPS.
So basically, you're saying give me Rookie of the Year and potentially MVP.
I was going to say, when are you expecting that?
Not to be unreasonable here, but just give me one of the best rookie seasons of all time.
I was going to say, what's the timetable? Do you expect that in year 2 or 3 or now? That's a pretty lofty expectations, but
I don't think it's impossible. It's just funny, and I don't think this guy. I don't think he's saying that like that's the minimum standard, but I don't think that's an unreasonable ceiling. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to potentially be excited about in terms of what kind of potential this guy's bringing. So I'm not trying to gang up on him, but I think that's probably more so where he's coming from with that comment. It's just funny to be like, just give me 30 plus bombs and 850 OPS.
Give me one of the best outfielder seasons of this whole, in the whole league, and I'll be satisfied. Yeah. So here's a tweet here going to take us kind of into our next little mini topic is Austin Wells. So he says, Austin Wells looks at the big screen every time he strikes out like it's going to help him in the next AB. Austin Wells has been a tough watch, man. And this is a guy I kept saying, give him 450 at bats and, kind of see what happens there. I think the potential is there. Last season, he had 71 RBIs and 21 homers. I was one of the better defensive catchers in the league. So you're saying, okay, give me the great defense, and he's going to hit 20 bombs and 70-something ribs. That's a great catcher, great situation, right? Mm-hmm. It is still early, but Wells is struggling, and the struggle bus, visits him often. He has some very rough slumps as the season goes on, but right now he's hitting 180 with a 588 OPS and a 100 at bats, and he seemingly chops everything to the right side. He's either striking out or he's chopping a ground ball to the right side. So it's a pretty brutal watch, and it almost feels like he is like a pitcher in the lineup, like the old school pitchers hitting. It's almost an automatic out every time he goes up there. So, obviously they're not going to move away from him this year. They have Escaro, who's a good backup. He's pretty serviceable. He handles the staff well. He can hit pretty well. What do you think Wells' ceiling is this season? Is this just who he is? He's going to keep getting worse every year. Do the Yankees have to look for a catcher this offseason at the deadline maybe? Like, what do they do with him?
Yeah, I think it's like time for me to kind of sit back on this one because I've been very much a proponent of Austin Wells and a believer in him. Not because I think he's like primed to become the next Buster Posey, but mostly because I think you don't just find defensive catchers like him behind the dumpster. They're a rare breed, and so you kind of have a different standard for how patient you're willing to be with the bat. And maybe it's a misread by me. Maybe I am subject to some kind of bias because I like great defensive catchers and I suffered through Gary and dreaming on the plus bat and trying to have that make up for a lack of glove. And I think Yankee fans overall, just look at how well Trevino was received for having just the bare minimum offensive output with a really great glove without really not that good of an arm. And right. I think Austin Wells, with the way he commands the rotation, with the way he can gun guys out and prevent guys from stealing, with the, and I think we're seeing that there's still a place for the skill of framing in today's game, given the challenge system we're kind of getting used to right now. We're seeing even just in the last couple weeks, let alone month, we're seeing a bit of a sea change around the frequency and earliness of ABS challenges, where I think the numbers are going to bear this out. Framing is still going to be a very valuable thing that gets people paid in this league. Mm-hmm. So it would be great if Austin Wells could achieve some kind of a theoretical ceiling that we can talk about and what we can still hope potentially may happen. But what you really want from him is to not be an absolute black hole of an offensive player. That's where I'm at right now. We talked about how we just dreamed on the idea of someone like a Volpe giving us a 700 plus OPS. Give me a 670, Austin Wells. Give me a 680. Give me a threatened 7. I don't need a 7. Just give me something up there. Pop a few home runs. Show me some good competitive at bats, and keep doing what you're doing behind the dish. And I saw some Mets fan on the fan recently, like a Mets fan who happens to be a radio host on local New York sports radio. Forget his name. Talking about how like the Yankees should be in the market for a catcher, and it's like, man, you don't get baseball, do you? Because like, look, Ben Rice knows the staff. he could step in there and do that. I could talk to you about how we could maybe have Goldschmidt take some more run at first base with Ben Rice catching, yada, yada. But the idea of like, oh, I know what the Yankees need. We need to bring in a brand new offensive catcher to take over the best asset we have in this team right now, which is the starting rotation.
Mm-hmm.
And potentially throw things off even a little bit there for the sake of having one extra batter that maybe has a marginally better chance of producing offensively in 1 to 3 games over the course of a month is an absolute joke. You don't get roster construction. You don't get the vibes of baseball at all when you're making that suggestion. That's all fantasy baseball type mentality that you get on the radio a lot. So I'm not there at all, but I am frustrated with Austin Wells like a lot of other fans are. And I'm not going to continue just to tell everyone to calm down and, just be patient. We do want to see a bit more out of him, and hopefully we will. But it would be a real tough spot to be in if he continued to be a black hole, because what do you do? What do you do with a catcher that's so important on the one side of the ball if he's such a detractor to the offense on the other side? It puts you in a bad spot. It's tough to think about a trade fixing that problem.
Right. And I think what has gotten the fans more against him recently was, okay, you had the World Series year where he was in the postseason and he didn't hit well, whatever. 2025, you had another postseason where he didn't hit well again. And now he's into this season and he's not hitting well again. So it's like, okay, a couple of postseasons where the fans kind of soured on him. He's off to a rough start this year. And like Jordan said, he's probably going to start getting some more flack. I have seen on Twitter a few people, mention he's, a zero offensively. He chops the ball to the right side every time. He's trying to pull everything. And, a lot of that is true. But I was looking at his OPS finishing seasons, since he got his cup of coffee in 2023. So 2023, he only has 70 at bats, but he finished the year with a 743 OPS. 2024, he finished the season with a 717 OPS. 2025, he finished with an OPS of 711. So that's 3 seasons in the bigs, a little bit of a small sample size, but he has 3 seasons of that over 700 OPS.
Yep.
So if he's around, slightly above or right around average offensively, and he's one of the top, 5 to 7 defensive catchers in the game, I think that warrants some patience.
Yeah.
He had 20 and 70 last year offensively, so maybe we just got to, take a chill out a little bit earlier this season. But, the bottom of the order being such a black hole is getting people looking at each one of those guys and getting very, criticizing each one of those guys pretty harshly. And Wells is, he has those really long slumps. Last year, he had long, drawn-out slumps, and people are just like, bro, just poke a single every now and then. You don't have to go 0 for 40 after you have a little heater.
Yeah.
So get on base.
Last year, his walk rate, I thought his walk rate was 7%, or was under 7%. So to look at some positive changes, even if the results haven't been there overall, his walk rate is more than doubled from this year to last. It's up around 16%, just under 16%, whereas last year was just below 7. So it's more than doubled in terms of walk rate. Small sample size, but the whole thing is a small sample size. We're talking about bad stuff. So in that same sample size, we're seeing a doubling of his walk rate. We're seeing a 4% reduction in his K rate as well. We're also seeing a slightly higher hard hit rate, and there's a bit of a gap between his expected WOBA and his actual weighted on base average. Not a huge one, but a significant one. So similar to the way Ben Rice was last year on a much larger scale, we have numbers to support the idea that he can turn this around, and in fact likely will, and hopefully get above that kind of baseline 700 OPS mark, given how much we kind of will have to put up with his offense either way, right? So it's not like, oh, just take it and be happy. We could be disappointed in his offense and still say we need to keep him on the roster. Because I don't think, and maybe let me ask you a question. Let me bring more Ben Rice conversation into this, as we often do. Do you believe Ben Rice has reached the point of importance as an offensive player where you kind of hesitate at having him catch again, like he did kind of sometime last year?
He had the year last year where he was very unlucky. Everyone said, if that luck turns around, he's going to be one of the best hitters in the league. And guess what happened early this season? The luck has flipped, and he's not one of the best hitters in the league. I think he might be the best hitter in the league if you're looking at the metrics. So it's one of those things, the Giants had to do it with Buster Posey. The Twins did it with Joe Mauer when he moved to first base. You see a lot of teams getting that great offensive catcher out from behind the plate.
And they were better. Those were better defensive catchers than Ben Rice's.
Yeah. So, it's almost to the point where, you don't want to put Rice back there and, there's a collision or something crazy happens. And then you just lost, one of the best offensive players in the league. So, earlier this season, I was throwing around the idea of Rice catching more, but, none of us, people did see this coming, but to this extent, I don't think I could have imagined him being in, battling Aaron Judge for AL MVP consideration. Like those are gaudy numbers, gaudy home run numbers. The OPS is ridiculous. So now you got to kind of change your stance. Like, I don't want the guy getting hurt back there. Leave him at first base, have him figure that out. But Austin Wells, it's one of those things where last year was his first full season, I believe, as the starting catcher. He played, I think 2024, he played 115 games. Last year, he played 126. So we're seeing as he plays more games, as he is getting more reps per season, his OPS is trending down. But we did see the 20 homers and the 70 ribs. So I think this year is going to be a big determining year for him. If he could sniff 20 homers and 70 ribs again, while also being a top 5 to 7 defensive catcher, you're gonna live with those, rough stretches because he handles the staff well, like you said. He's got power potential. He's playing in Yankee Stadium. He is capable of driving in runs. So, it's a position where it's hard to get the combination of great offensive player plus good defensive player as well. And it's funny, we keep coming back to Austin Wells was hyped as, offense first catcher with no defense. And now, the narrative's kind of flipped where he's all defense and everyone's like, where the hell's the offense? So it's funny how that happens sometimes, but I'm very frustrated watching him offensively too, but I'm kind of in the camp of give him a couple months. Let's see where his numbers are at around the All-Star break. Mm-hmm. If he's still hitting 180 with no damage by the All-Star break, okay. Maybe he's gotten exposed to the league a little bit and he's declining as an offensive player. Maybe the 20 and 70 was a blip on the radar and he's not, going to be that good going forward. I don't know, but I think it's a little premature to be totally out on him, even though the choppers to right field over and over again are very frustrating. But if we can get more length to that lineup, if we can get some more depth, Stanton comes back, Caballero comes back, Jazz starts hitting, it's gonna give us more guys who are going to produce to where you're not relying on an Austin Wells to have to come through with runners in scoring position, so many times, or be up at the wrong time, and chop a ground ball double play to the right side and everyone's pissed off. So definitely a wait and see with Wells. So last thing we will do is highlight someone who is a little bit under the radar, maybe who's not an Aaron Judge, who's not a Ben Rice, and kind of talk about their impact and what they've been doing lately and kind of shine some light on them. So did you have a player in mind?
Why don't you get us started? You go first.
Yeah. So my first one is the biggest forearms in Major League Baseball. Our favorite pet goldfish, Paul Goldschmidt, in his last 50 plate appearances. And I'm a guy that thought he should be, considering retirement. I thought we were going backwards towards the older guys when we brought him in. Obviously, I loved him when he was in Arizona, when he was in his prime. He was incredible. The guy could, every time he played the Dodgers, I would go to a Dodger game and they'd be playing the Diamondbacks. Goldschmidt homered every single time. Like, he was a menace in his prime. Won an MVP in St. Louis, I think. So he's had a history of being a rock solid player, a good defender, a good bat to ball guy. He crushes homers, he hits for power, contact, all those things. So Goldschmidt, in that sense, you're obviously like, oh my God, Paul Goldschmidt on the Yankees would be awesome. But towards the end, towards the end of his, whole situation in St. Louis didn't look great. I thought when they brought him in, like, man, we're kind of going the wrong direction. I think we should, be looking for a little more youthful, a little more, impact player. And he's been better than expected. He's made a good impression. He's been absolutely destroying left-handed pitchers. This year, he's kind of taken a step back into playing time because obviously Ben Rice is phenomenal at first base. But, Paul Goldfish's last 50 plate appearances, He's hitting 289 with a 938 OPS. Phenomenal. He's hit 2 doubles. He has a triple. The old man with the giant forms has a triple. And he's hit 3 home runs in that span. So breath of fresh air to see that. He's going to get a little bit more run here with some guys getting hurt. A little bit of a merry-go-round there with who's in, who's out. But just got to tip my cap to the old Goldfish. Biggest forearms in the league. Love to see him, contributing offensively when we really need it. And hopefully that continues.
Very good. When you're wrong about someone or something, no one talks about it more than you.
Hey, so I'll put it out there.
We would have all forgotten about you having
your Twitter never forgets. Twitter never forgets.
We would have long forgotten about it if you didn't spend time relitigating it. And
I have to give some context. I gotta call it how I see it. You can't. Sometimes I'll tweet, "Have I ever lied to you?" Luckily, you guys don't remember the lies, but
the answer is yes. You are a liar. We all, none of us. You're not fooling anyone.
That's fine. Totally fine.
Know that you're an absolute grifter.
It's a rhetorical question. All right. Yep. Rhetorical question.
I got to shoot you straight to. Anyway. Okay. So mine, I'd like to give this as a joint award to our third base platoon. So shout out Ahmed Rosario, but I'm going to focus on Ryan McMahon today. So Ryan McMahon was not too long ago the absolute number one pariah amongst all Yankee fans. And he's reemerged as not just a viable player who we can stomach the idea of seeing in the lineup, but an absolute contributor over the last 2 or so weeks. Since the beginning of May, now I'm not going to get into how atrocious his April was, but he had a terrible April, and even so much even his defense was suffering, which is the only reason why you can justify having a guy like him in the lineup right now. But limited sample size, granted. But since the beginning of May, he's been batting .409. He's got an on base of .458, slugging .682, which brings his EPS to 1.140. That's right. Higher than Aaron Judge and anyone else in the roster, actually. So since May started, he's your number one offensive player on this team. He's been playing good defense, sound defense, in addition to his 4 extra base hits and 1 home run off Jacob deGrom, future Hall of Famer. So shout out to the Irish-American legend himself, Ryan McMahon. Snaps for Ryan.
That's a great one. That's a really good one. Tip of the cap to Ryan McMahon, man. We always talk about like the Gallos, the Donaldsons, the Hicks. These guys get on the fans' bad side. They started getting booed and they just crumble. Tip of the cap to Ryan McMahon for taking that in the chin, figuring his shit out, and now the fans are rooting for him. That's how you get Yankee fans to respect you when you're struggling. Sure. Get out there and produce, and it's beautiful to see. Not a lot of guys can take that kind of treatment from the fans and stuff like that, and the social media stuff, and turn it around. Yeah. So we've
talked a lot today about guys that play premium defensive positions. Spencer Jones, center field, can kind of include in that group, but certainly Volpe and Wells.
Yeah.
Ryan McMahon is playing arguably the 3rd or maybe 4th most defensive spot in the field, and he's known for his glove. And to show up the way he has with the bat recently is, not the reason why we're losing. I'll say that much.
Yeah, for sure.
We got to show some respect there, because the boos and the noise around him was loud.
Oh yeah, it really was.
Yep.
And third base has kind of been a hole since Gio Urshela. Donaldson, was kind of gonna be the guy there. Kind of fell flat on his face. But yeah, tip of the cap to McMahon. He's got power. We've seen him have success in Colorado. You never know when you take a guy out of Colorado if the offense is going to translate. But he's playing in Yankee Stadium. We know he could pull homers. But he's shown some opposite field power too. Mm-hmm. He's hit a few balls the other way, and he stayed on them and stung those damn things. So absolutely love to see that.
And that's what he was working on during spring training, and he'd been struggling through trying to make that adjustment. And hopefully, this is a sign that he's stuck with that, and he's finally seeing results. Because boy, it'd be great if he could sustain even a little bit of this going forward. We'll see.
Yeah, you mentioned Rosario as well. He's been a pleasant surprise, man. They've thrown him at second base a little bit. He's showing some promise with the bat. When we're facing a lefty, Rosario goes up there and he puts together a competitive at bat, and he does damage when he gets an opportunity. So I think that platoon, it's not always, a situation where platoons work out. Sometimes there's one guy who's way overperforming the other one. They just go with him the rest of the way. But this is a really good balanced platoon that they got going there. So
I like it a lot too.
Some credit to Brian Cashman there for pushing the right button. Who's Brian Cashman's looking really good this year. a lot of his moves are paying off. A lot of his decisions have worked out pretty well. We'll see. The big test for him this year is going to be that bullpen, though. When we get to the All-Star break, do you dip into the minors and you go to some of those young, high-powered arms? Who's going to be available? I think who's going to be available and what's it going to cost is obviously going to be the biggest determining
factor. That's a great question. And to tease the next episode, I think we should do a bit of a deeper dive on our flame-throwing friend Lagrange.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
We haven't talked about him enough, man. We haven't.
Yeah, it kind of feels like he's kind of far away a little bit. I feel like they're going to let him start the first half of the season, and then second half maybe he comes up as a reliever. But you talk about a guy.
The more we see this bullpen struggle, wouldn't it be nice to see them roll the dice?
It sure would.
A little bit more of that urgency we've seen and heard, and see a guy like Lagrange, where they kind of put the starter development train on ice for a little bit and bring him up and see what he can do out of the back end of the bullpen, man, for a one-inning guy. I saw some friends of ours on the Twitter machine talking about his split between first inning versus innings 2 through 4, 2 through 5 as a starter. And he is absolute nails in the first inning. So it doesn't take an expert to start, figuring out that maybe this guy is going to be even better and really empty the tank as a one-inning relief guy. Yeah, he's already doing that as a starter when he's gearing up for an extra 4 innings beyond that. So, like I said, we can talk about that more in the next show. But you want them to make some additions to the bullpen yesterday already from trades, whatever. But hopefully, it's a combination of guys emerging out of the system, as well as a few additions. I don't expect the Mason Miller to come walk through that door. Anyone of that caliber, right? I think we're kind of stuck with the guys we have. I think Bednar is an absolute ballast for us there at the back end. But you can't have Doval be your 8th inning guy, and I think no one thinks that's actually going to be a sustainable strategy for us. So
Bednar's been catching some shit lately too, though.
Yeah, no, I mean for sure. But he's been a bend but not break type guy, and you take that
for sure. He's not the reason this bullpen is struggling. There's a little bit of a lack of depth there. I say it all the time. I joke around about it, but it's not a Yankee game unless there's a Fernando Cruz sighting, because the guy is in every single fucking game, and it's like I'm scared, man. His arm's gonna fall off. He's like 37. He's out there pitching.
Not 37. Is he?
36, 36, 37,
okay.
36.
He's quick research
around there, but man, the dude is out there every single day, and I'm always. More splitters, please, Mr. Cruz. But holy shit, how long can the guy keep doing this? The pace is absolutely ridiculous.
He just turned 36.
36. Okay, so he's right around there. But yeah, Doval, man, he's scary. He throws hard as hell. He's wild as shit. Hedrick has been used a lot too. That's a good call there by Chris.
He's starting to show he's starting to kind of slip a little bit. Hedrick, I think, was overachieving a bit there.
Yes,
they were kind of getting away with him for a while, and we're seeing him start to come back to earth a little bit. So. I don't know, man. I think the time is now. I've been saying that's my most consistent take about this team all year. Is the time is now to make moves. I'm not interested in waiting until July 31st for every addition we make to the bullpen. I think I see no reason to not start looking at adding some guys now, even if it means calling a guy up. But yeah, no, I think come July I'd be shocked if the Yankees didn't bring up a Lagrange and give him some run as a reliever on the major league squad.
And there's I believe his last name was Flores. There's another prospect down there who's also throwing over Hundo, who's I think 26 years old. So he's not super young.
He's rising the ranks in terms of our prospects.
Yeah. Why not give him a cup of coffee, man? If I have to watch Blackburn out there again, I think I'm going to pull my fucking hair out. So he is a tough watch. I like Yarbrough, though. You got to have a dead fish lefty. You got to have yourself a dead fish lefty every now and then who can come in there and throw some soft shit and get guys off balance a little bit. But Tommy Wilson says Hedrick's arm is going to fall off before Cruz's. Oh, man. It always reminds me of Joe Torre with Scott Proctor. I think one year he had like 70 appearances or like 80 appearances or something.
Scott Proctor. Don't forget Paul Quantrill.
He
always had like a almost like an NPC Lego man type white guy out in the bullpen that he would just have him go 300 innings or something.
Pitches at 300 innings, 300 appearances.
Like generic kind of like, yes, coach, I'll do what you ask type guy out there.
Just every time
Scott Proctor.
He's sitting close to the phone every day in the bullpen, and he's starting to get loose in the third inning.
Yeah, Hedrick fits that mold a bit better than Cruz. Cruz has actually got a little bit of spice to him. So
yeah, and we've seen, Hedrick kind of looks more like the rubber arm guy where he can just throw and throw and throw and throw. We saw Cruz get hurt twice last year, so it's like, if you keep
lower body injuries, right?
If you keep I think he had an oblique. He had an
Okay.
oblique. So I don't know, old man injuries, but we got the Mets coming up starting tomorrow. On the hill is going to be Cam Schlittler versus, oh boy, Clay Holmes is on the hill for the Mets.
That's a win.
An old friend of ours, which is, what's crazy? He's got 4 wins and a 1.86 ERA. So Clay's pitching pretty well. We'll see if this offense can, put something together against him. But the stuff was never the question. The guy just was not a good closer. But anyways, Cam Schlittler on the hill tomorrow. Ace type guy. This is when you want him out there. He's going to be a stopper. Yankees are, lost 2 out of 3 to the Orioles, which is kind of embarrassing. Damian says, I can't believe Ben Rice is 31 already. There's no way.
No,
he's like 27.
26, 27.
27? It's like
Damian sounds like a Red Sox fan.
I had that one tweet where I said that Jason Dominguez was like a 30-year-old prospect or something, and everyone just jumped my shit in the comments. But you got Ben Rice, you got Dominguez, and you got Spencer Jones. Those are our 30-year-old prospects.
You guys believe that Gleyber Torres is still just 22 years old?
Juan Soto was still 23 years old. Did you know that? He came up when he was like 12.
I'm not trying to be like problematic here, but there's no way that's freaking true, dude.
Dude, Juan Soto looks way older than
Juan Soto is like 42, man. Are you joking? Come on.
He's got like a whole family back in the DR already, but
Aroldis Chapman is 28.
I missed the hell out of Juan Soto. I know we're not going to go into the whole thing, but I still like to watch him play, but I think he's going to be hurt when the Yankees are going to Queens.
That's a shame. It would have been fun. It would have been good TV to see him play against us again. It always is. But yeah, just the Mets though. Just the Mets. Whatever.
Tommy says Giovanni Cruz is the one in AAA throwing 100.
Thank you, Tommy.
Give him a look, man. Is that are you tweeting from your own? Are you commenting from your own?
That's my mom.
YouTube?
She's being her usual self.
Check Connor's tweets to see how often he called Holmes.
We talked about Paul Goldschmidt. I'll talk.
Don't look at mine either. Don't look at my old tweets either.
Yeah, so I was definitely doing a bit of. I was doing some engagement farming back. I think 2 seasons ago. I would often make jokes about like. I would rage bait people by saying Clay Holmes was like as good as Mariano, and people would believe me. They would think that I was like being
there
sincere.
Was an account out there that actually believed that, but I digress.
I don't remember it, but I remember just posting like Clay Holmes is coming in and just like a picture of Rivera like running into the dugout in like 2000 or something. And people would be like, what's wrong with you? Why would you say that? And it's like, look at the analytics, look at the metrics. He's just as good, if not better. And people would be like, "Oh my god, this guy's insane." And I'm like, I kind of am, but not for that reason.
He's just out there hunting. He's were you verified at that time doing that, or were you just doing it for the love of the game?
Fully for the love of the game. Are you kidding me?
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tommy says Devin Williams grand slam to Spencer Jones type of the ninth. Things we love to see. No, in all seriousness, the Mets are struggling mightily right now. If Juan Soto's out, it's going to be even worse for them. If we don't sweep them, geez.
It's going to be a get right series for one of us, and hopefully it's not the Mets.
if it's a get right series for the Mets, the whole state of New York might crumble to the ground. But all right, guys, we will leave it there. For those of you who have tuned in this time, thank you so much for being here. If you have not done it already, go to YouTube, subscribe to the channel. We would appreciate that greatly. Leave us a comment, like this video, like all the other videos. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell the mailman, tell your DoorDash delivery guy,
tell your pets, tell your cats, tell your goldfish.
Yes, tell your pet bunnies like me. Soto played today, so he'll be there. Okay.
Oh, good.
Makes it more fun. Makes it more fun to watch. Indeed. I definitely want to watch him. But we thank you guys for tuning in. We will be back probably in a couple weeks. We will let you know on Twitter. Make sure you are following us to see when the next show will be. But for now, it is off to tomorrow. Anything else you want to say, Connor?
Go Yanks. Beat the Mets.
Go Yanks, baby. Subway Series. Absolutely love it. Going to Queens. So let's see how that goes. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your night, and we will see you next time. Peace.